Hey everyone, it's very happy to be here at the Filecoin Dev Summit. And my name is Long Fei, and as you guys probably know, and I work at the FieldB alongside with Sarah, Rich, and Mike. Today's topic, we're going to talk about how to run your own subgraph on Filecoin. And as you guys know, that Filecoin Virtual Machine was launched back in 2023. And after that, there's a lot of smart contract application building on top of it. Either it's storage related or not storage related. But for all these applications, that having a good way to request the structured and queryable data is super critical to build the application. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, and how to use Goldsky to create your own subgraph and how to use it to unlock a fast real-time querying for your smart contract. I will also keep it more practical and show you guys a short live demo along the way. And let's dive in. Like I mentioned earlier, in the blockchain world, indexing is critical because blockchains store everything in a raw event-driven format, but searching, filtering, and accessing those data is not efficient. That's why projects like the Graph and Goldsky are created. So they meant to make the blockchain data queryable using the GraphQL by indexing smart contract in a more structured way. So they also offer a very super easy to use good developer experience, which means you don't have to run your own full node and you don't have to maintain the full node. You just go there and index and query the data after creating the subgraph. And that also applies on Filecoin. So on Filecoin, there are a couple options that you can use. So the first is the Protofile. They offers a public access to the graph service, and it's simplifying the process of deploying and managing your subgraph and using it to query the structured data. And recently, Filecoin also becomes a supported chain on Goldsky as well. And that means developers can also use Goldsky to index the smart contract data on Filecoin, the similar way that they used it on other UVM compatible chains. And so let's see how we can use it. So if you want to learn more about what Goldsky is, then you can go to their document and their website to look at it. And they have a pretty good document to explaining what it is and how to use it. So today, I'm going to focus on how to build a subgraph on Goldsky for Filecoin. And there are a couple of ways you can do it. And first is obviously they have a pretty good UI, and you can go on the UI to create a subgraph by just simply clicking the buttons. Or if you prefer more of like a coding and command line tool, and they also offers a Goldsky CLI, which you can just interact with it to create your subgraph. But first, you need to go to that website and just create an account so you can manage your subgraph. And so let's look at these options one by one. First, obviously, as I mentioned, you can simply create from the UI. And if you log in with your account on the Goldsky, there's a couple options here. For example, creating your subgraph and setting up the project. And add a subgraph tab, and there's an option to deploy a subgraph. And you can just click on it and providing some of the information it's asking. For example, what's the name of subgraph and which the contract address you need to index data for. And that you can specify for the contract you want to index the data. And in terms of the network, the Filecoin mainnet and the Filecoin testnet are both supported. And the another two optional field is starting block. If you know when your smart contract is created, it's better to provide a starting block. So it will index the data starting from that block instead of going from the beginning. And the second is the SQL contract API. If your smart contract is verified on Filecoin, and it will be automatically pulling from the internet. But if it's not, and then it's better to provide a contract API here. So when you're creating a subgraph, it knows what the events and what the method are. Once you fill out this information, and you can just simply to deploy your subgraph. And that's the UI way to do it. And then the second way of doing it is if you are more familiar with command line, if you like to try it, and you can do it also from the command line. And on the Goldsky document, they explain pretty well on how to do it. But most important for it is we will need to install the Goldsky CLI, and they also have a pretty good instruction. So following the instruction, you can install the Goldsky CLI and just basically downloading it. The second, don't forget to log in, and you need to log in with the API keys that you create from the UI. And I will show you how to do it. So if you go back to the dashboard of Goldsky, and under the setting, and you can create a key, specify name, and that key will be created. So with that API key, you can log into Goldsky in the command line. So it knows which account is creating the subquery. And once it's done, you can run the command to verify if it's installed correctly or not. So after you install the CLI, there are a couple of ways to create a subgraph. The first way is if you have created it before and you have the subgraph configuration, everything in the source file, you can simply just create based on that source code. And then the second option is if you have a subquery created on the graph, and you can simply create that subgraph on Goldsky. You just need to provide a URL to that graph. If it's deployed on IPFS, you can also provide the IPFS CID. And then the last option is what we can talk about today is created from the scratch. And if you follow in the subgraph deploy wizard, it's super simple to do it. And they also have a video to walk you through if you want to learn it first before you're jumping into it. And let's look at how you could do it right now. So first, before we go into create the subgraph, there's a couple of things you need to prepare. The similar as you created on the UI, you need to know which smart contract you want to create a subgraph for. So you need to have the smart contract address, and you better have the ABI for that smart contract and save in your locally as a JSON file. And if you know when this smart contract was created and having a starting block number is also good. And once you have those information ready, and we can start creating that subgraph. So let's follow in the instruction here. And the first command is kick off the creation using this command line. And you will ask you all the questions, the similar as the UI. For example, the name, and we're gonna just call it basically, but obviously you have, I will use raptor field as the example, and you can also use the smart contract for the one that you want to create it. And here you need to provide the ABI, as I mentioned earlier. I have already saved it locally. But if you don't know, and you can go to the blockchain explorer to find it out. So for example, in the raptor field, and I can get my contract address from here. And since it's verified on the explorer, and I can also access the ABI and just basically simply copy paste and save it to local. So because I've already done it, so I'm just going to use that path to access the ABI. And this is the only ABI I'm going to create, and the smart contract address. And I'm going to create against the Filecoin mainnet, and you can also create against the Filecoin testnet as well. And because I have created it before, so I know what's the starting epoch. I've done my job and did some calculation. So I'm going to pick up that number. And just going to create it on Filecoin. It says it's raptor field and just one contract. And I'm going to filter on the events. I don't have to handle all the calls, and I'm just going to skip that. And now I have all the information. I can start initializing and deploy the contract. And I will make it automatically defilter all the events. And now it will build the graph. And once it's done, and we can deploy it, so we can publicly accessing it. now it's your subgraph is created for wrap to fill on Filecoin, and this is the query interface you can access, and also the dashboard. And then start indexing from this block number all the way to the end. As you guys know, it will take some time to index a lot of the blocks from that. So I have create another subgraph which is already indexed, and I'm going to use that as example to show you how you can query the data against that. So first on the UI, and you can play around and you can see how you can query a data using that. And obviously there's another options to integrate into your application. So on the front end, you have the code to run the query and then getting the data to feed into your application. But let's play around here. And from the document here, you can have a sense of what data you can request, a block high, and that's the data type you can have. And all the query against like deposit and then transfer. And like, for example, if you want to look at a transfer and you know what's the fields that you can get, like ID from to amount, let's look at the query. If you're a builder, you're probably familiar with the query. And when you create the query, you can set up conditions like the first 5 transfer and the order by the timestamp and by the descent order. And that's the field I want to look at, ID from to amount and timestamp. Let's run it and then try. Cool. And now you're getting the top 5 transfer for the rep field. And you can also create more like conditions in there. For example, I already have it. I also want to look at where I want to look at the transfer only coming from this address. So you can set a where condition, and that will give you all the transactions that you want from this address. And you can also remove it if you don't want it. So basically, that's a very simple query you can run against the index data. And like I mentioned earlier, you can also put in those into your front end application as long as you have the public access subgraph. Just make sure that you use the Goldsky API endpoint to query the data, and there you go. Now you can try and to create your subgraph on Filecoin for your smart contract, and also building application around it. Cool. I think that's all my talk today. And to recap, so now on Filecoin, you can easily use the Goldsky to create a subgraph for the indexed smart contract data. And that's super easy to do it through the UI or through the command line in just a few minutes. So giving this a subgraph some time to index the data. After that, you can create a powerful application using those data. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you guys have a great time listening to all the talks at the Filecoin Dev Summit, and I hope to see you guys in Toronto as well.